You're on.
You guys ready?
Yes.
You guys ready for these facts? Alright, so. Alright. The 19th Amendment was adopted in 1920. It prohibited the states and the federal government from denying the right to vote to citizens of the United States on the basis of sex. Equality 1. What I am about to talk about, though, should not be taken as a issue of equality. My proposition is that females will negatively affect the United States infantry if they are directly integrated in rifle units. Should I repeat it? Or you guys got it? Cool. Alright. Females will negatively affect the United States infantry if they are directly integrated in rifle units. Now, I will first explain to you what the infantry is. The infantry is the backbone of the army. These are the guys who are kicking down doors and taking names. These are the guys who, like pilots exist so that they can move. You have a question?
I'm giving you time.
Oh, okay.
5 minutes left.
My fault. Okay. So cooks exist so that they can feed the infantry. Pilots exist so that they can move the infantry to where they need to go. Drivers exist so that they can bring equipment to infantry units on the ground. Tracking? Oh. I would like to add that I served in the 101st Airborne Infantry Division. I served for 4 years. I was in Afghanistan for about a year. I've actually lost some friends due to combat. And this is just so you guys know where my point of view is, right? So you guys understand where I'm coming from. Now I will discuss the physical differences between males and females for my first point, and I will discuss the current United States Army physical fitness standards and how they will affect the infantry rifle units in my second point. Males and females have an uneven physical anatomy and will cause conflicts in a combat environment. According to a study by the American Physiological Society, males have an average of 26 pounds more skeletal muscle mass than females. Females have 33% less low body strength than males on average and over 35% less upper body strength. Now this can cause an issue in combat because if your buddy gets shot, the enemy will not wait for you to find someone to carry this comrade. They will continue to shoot, and this is an issue. According to the United States Army Infantry Field Manual 21-18, the FM that covers the weight that soldiers are required to carry in combat environments, soldiers are required to carry equipment weighing up to 45 pounds. This is what the book says. This is not what is true. There's no other written evidence, but you can ask any infantry veteran and they will tell you that they have carried a lot more than that. Marine Corps Combat Development Command conducted a study where they tested the physical capabilities of males and females and found that in addition to female integrated units performing significantly worse, they also found that females sustain injuries at higher rates than men, with fatigue and susceptibility to stress injuries being major factors. I will elaborate more on this on my second point. Now that I've discussed the physical differences between males and females, I will discuss the current United States Army physical fitness standards and how they will affect infantry rifle units. According to the United States Army Infantry Physical Fitness Manual FM 21-20, males aged 17 to 21 are required to conduct 42 push-ups and a 15:54 2-mile run at a minimum to pass the physical fitness test, while females aged 17 to 21 are required to conduct 19 push-ups and an 18:54 at a minimum on the 2-mile to pass the physical fitness test. The female requirements are significantly lower, and this will lower the effectiveness of rifle units. In my experience, again, this is something that has not been written down, soldiers who scored poorly on their physical fitness test performed poorly in combat environments. In combat, there's not a guy walking around writing down who sucked or who couldn't run fast enough or who couldn't carry a fallen comrade. This is just something that happens, and there's no written evidence. I'm just telling you what I saw. Okay, you might be saying, let's just make them equal. This will surely fix the problem. But according to the Marine Corps Combat Development Command in 1998, the British Army standardized the physical fitness requirements from being gender normed to gender neutral. They found that female injury-related discharges increased from 4.6% to 11% Male injury-related discharges remained at the same at 1.5%. So what this means is that they actually did what I'm talking about, where they normalized it for male and female, which it's like the same. They have the same requirements, and this means that the injury-related discharge rate for females was 4.6 before they increased it to match that of the male test, and after it increased to 11%. So that just shows that females are more susceptible to injury, while the male injury-related discharges remain at 1.5. In conclusion, females being directly integrated into rifle units will have a negative result in unit readiness. Okay.
Thank you.
Were you airsoft too? Yeah, look at you over here. High speed runs. Don't look at high speed load.
All right, well, the proposition's very clearly identified. I thought that was fine. The secondary points that you label sound like they are topic areas rather than claims, and I think that that's a little bit problematic because it's going to be harder to tell what the inferences are as we go on. I think as we're listening to the information and you give your explanations, it becomes clearer and clearer. But I do think that organizationally it would be best if you made those a little bit more declarative in nature rather than simply descriptive of what the subject matter is going to be. Controversy, I think one of the things that you might want to point out is that there has been pressure to make these kinds of changes, to include women more in combat units, that's a decision that's been made recently, that there are questions about whether or not it's appropriate, that it continues to be debated in the Pentagon, that kind of stuff. I think you could show that there's a little bit more going on there, but I think you recognize that as soon as you open your mouth, there are going to be people who are responding immediately to the position that you're taking. That seems like it's a little defensive. All right. Like I said, I think the secondary points are labeled pretty clearly, but they're not really phrased as claims, so that's a little problematic. But there's good information on all of the points that you've got. You've got studies that you refer to. You've got some statistical data that provides us with information about the standards of women versus men. You've got the factual data about what the field manuals require. There are a couple of places where you are dependent upon your personal experience. I don't have an objection to your using the personal experience. I just think it needs to be supplemented a little bit in a couple of spots. So, for instance, the idea that people have to carry more than the 45 pounds, I don't doubt that that's true, but it seems like that would be something that would be easy to document without necessarily just having to rely. If you've been in the military, well, you're talking to maybe 3 people who've been in that situation, but not a whole bunch. So they'll understand what you're talking about. You need to follow up with something that said, here's an example, for instance, or here's the testimony of one of your colleagues, that you served with, that said, are you kidding? I've never gone out with less than 80 pounds on my back, or whatever the heck it happens to be. That's what the field manual says, but with all of the equipment that people in your specialty, for instance, had to deal with, that added an extra 40 or 30 or whatever number of pounds on it. So I just think that there's other information out there that is available that you didn't take advantage of to make those kinds of arguments. The same thing is true, for instance, you said there's no studies that talk about how somebody sucks in their PT and then they suck in the field. That's just what I saw. There's got to be some information because that's how they set the PT standards in the first place, so there's got to be some explanation about why the minimum is the minimum, and that means that somebody is not going to exceed expectations, be the most reliable person, that sort of thing. And I think you need more stuff that talks about how the physicality is so important for especially the the service area that you're talking about, the infantry, physicality is a big deal, because I think one of the responses that people are going to be making here is that we're going to be relying less and less on infantry in combat situations in the future. That when you talked about guys kicking down the doors and taking names and all that kind of stuff, soon we're going to have robots kicking down the names and kicking down doors and taking names. And we won't have to kick down the doors because our drones will be spying through the ceiling with infrared, all kinds of stuff. It's like, and the idea that you have to be, able to do the things that you talk about, for example, to operate some of that equipment. I think there's an argument that says the military is in transition on a lot of things, and that might be one of the justifications for making these kinds of changes.
Okay.
And that's just, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know. I'm just trying to think about what the issues are there.
Right.
I'm not making an argument about it because I don't have any information about that. I'm just speculating on those kinds of things. I thought it was pretty well delivered. Like I said, you were pretty consistent about citing your sources there, so that's pretty solid. Okay, thank you.